Hi, I'm Shirlaine from TSC Tuition, and today I'll be talking about how to embed film techniques in an essay. There are a couple of things that we have to think about when we're analysing a film text. And the main thing that we have to remember is that a film text is exactly that. It is a film text, which means that we need to show that we really understand everything that the director has chosen to do on screen. So this involves everything from the color palette to uses of visual motifs, to the soundtrack, to the Foley, to the dialogue, to the script, to the acting, to the camera angle shots and things like that. All of it are tools that the director has chosen to use to present the story in a particular way. Now, we can always argue that sometimes things just appear on screen because, you think about, say, for example, the coffee cup in Game of Thrones. You think about, birds flying overhead, things like that. Those things aren't really, in the director's control, but it has to be assumed that the vast majority of what we see on screen is there because the director chose for it to be there in conjunction with everybody else who works on the film. So your costume designers, your set designers, your makeup artists, your actors who are doing the work on screen. So in saying that, even though there are so many people working together to produce what we see on film, the reason why we want to talk about directorial choices is because the director ultimately has the final say in what appears on screen. So we really want to talk about the director's intent in analysing whatever techniques or themes or dialogue or whatever it is that you're analysing there. If we're talking about film techniques in a body paragraph, in an English text essay or in an English comparative essay, we want to treat it the same way as we treat a normal piece of evidence, like a quote. So those of you who are familiar with the teal structure of a body paragraph, if not, go and check out my video on how teal works. But if we think about the teal structure, right, we have a topic sentence, which is your main idea for the body paragraph, your evidence, and then when we explain, what we're really explaining is how does your evidence prove your topic sentence. Now, with the quote, that's fairly stock standard, right? When you're explaining it, you're talking about, well, when the character says X, Y, and Z, it proves or it demonstrates or it explores, whatever. And again, I have a great 6 great verbs for teal video out, so go check that out as well. But we want to be talking about how does this quote show that, that love conquers all? How does this quote show that these characters have power over other people, whatever it is that your topic sentence is about? So the same principle applies when we're talking about film techniques. It's just that instead of saying when character says X, Y, and Z, we're talking about things like, director uses color palettes to explore X, Y, and Z emotion, to demonstrate the themes of power over, personal circumstances. Or, if we're not talking about color palettes, maybe we're talking about the use of visual motifs. We could say something like, for example, in The Queen, we could say something like, director uses the recurring motifs of water as a symbol for the necessity of change. And then off you go to talk about whatever your topic sentence is. I don't have a topic sentence right now, but if you do, then you would talk about how does the use of the repetition of that visual motif support whatever your topic sentence is about. Maybe it's about the necessity for change, and that, leaders who can adapt to change are great leaders, whatever. Ultimately, what we want to do is we want to treat all cinematic devices or film techniques the same as we treat any quote. Whenever we put up a film device or technique or cinematic device, we want to connect it to your topic sentence. The biggest mistake that I see in terms of students not handling the techniques part of it well is that they just throw it in and move on. It doesn't quite work like that, mainly because when you put in a technique or a device, whatever you choose to call it, you are presenting it as evidence. You're saying that I have this opinion of the text that, director explores the necessity of change within powerful institutions, for example. That's your topic sentence. And then when you say that the director has used color palette, the director has used visual motif, the director, repeats certain melodic sounds, that the director uses certain camera angles or framing or whatever. When you say that, what I'm expecting and what your examiners and teachers are expecting to see after you mentioning that is, how does then that support that there is a necessity for change in powerful institutions, that institutions have to change with the times, right? Does it prove that they don't fit in with their situation anymore? Does it suggest that there is some internal struggle, turmoil going on? Does it explore the complexities of powerful institutions and the relationships that it has with its people and citizens? What is it saying, or what do you think it's saying about whatever topic sentence you're talking about? So that's the biggest mistake I see students making in terms of analysing a film, is that they just say, director uses camera angle, and then they move on to a piece of dialogue, and they use the dialogue only to talk about the themes, topic sentence, whatever. And what that ends up doing is that it shows your examiner, or it shows your teacher, that you don't know what that film technique is doing. You don't know what kind of emotions we're supposed to be feeling as viewers when we look at this particular color palette. You don't know that, that the director is choosing to associate certain themes with certain colors. You don't know that the director is using certain framing angles to suggest emotional states of characters, like, maybe the director is using really wide, long shots to suggest loneliness, to suggest that power is lonely, and that wielding power makes you isolated. Things like that, whatever. But whatever it is that you're choosing to analyze in terms of cinematic devices, you have to connect it to a point of view. There is no point in talking about a cinematic device or a film technique just for the sake of it, because what you'll end up doing is it'll just be a dot point list of author or director has used white shot, director uses color palette, director uses soundtrack, but there's no real discussion of what the director is ultimately trying to achieve through using all of these devices. So what I would suggest is, if you're struggling to connect them, take it back to your notes, right? Go back to your notes and see if you wrote down anything about, wide camera angle, and then what's the effect of it, or what's the intended effect. So did you write down notes about, maybe that the character is lonely? Did you write down notes about how this color palette symbolizes anger? Does it, what did you note down? If you didn't write any notes, you then need to maybe talk with your teacher talk with your fellow students, look online, talk with your tutor about what those cinematic devices might result in the viewer's perception of, character, theme, situation, whatever. So you really want to go back to the roots of it and think about, okay, well, what's the point of this cinematic device or this film technique, and then really incorporate it into your explanation and making sure that you are using that film technique or cinematic device to prove that your topic sentence is correct. So I hope that was helpful. As always, like and subscribe to all of our social media channels so that you can get our latest tips and tricks to achieving your best in your English subject. And as always, if you'd like to get some one-to-one tutoring, these days we are meeting online and face-to-face when restrictions allow. Please let us know, contact us, and we can send someone to you. Thanks for watching.